Okay, so this next episode very different than the last one. This one is about yourself as a trader. So I'm reading this book called My Trading Bible, I believe it's called, by this guy Mark Ritchie. I think that's his name. He was in Market Wizards. I got it recommended to me by somebody, so it's one that I haven't read. So I'm going back and reading some old books just to kind of remember some old lessons. I just kind of am in the mood to do it. Sometimes I go years and I don't want to do it, but anyways, so I'm doing that right now, and I've been confronted with this a few times. So he talks about the traits of a successful trader, and it's the same things that we've heard many times about. You may like to play poker. You may be good at bluffing. You're not necessarily impulsive. You are assuming you're going to be wrong. You know where you're going to get hurt. You're always looking for your downside, your risk management, which definitely I can liken myself to that one, but the other one's not so much. And goes down the list further about assessing everything in a probabilistic manner. He talks about how right-brained people are not as good at trading as left-brained people. I believe he makes that statement, or at least it's inferred a little bit by what he says in the book. I'm enjoying the book, by the way. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just talking about some of the observations. And I can see a few friends of mine who are pretty good traders, and they have a lot of these attributes. And I can see how the opposite of that is not good. But I look at myself, and I don't have most of those attributes. I'm good about risk management. Ultimately, I've never blown anything out. I've taken a lot of big drawdowns. I just had a nice drawdown. But as I talked about in the previous podcast, more open profit loss, but kind of the same thing. Money was money, right? So, but I I have found that it's dangerous when you start to put yourself in a mold, because I sat next to a guy day trading who did everything the opposite of what you'd want, and he was awesome at it. He was one of the best traders, and he was always fading the trend constantly, short-term trend fading, but he was so good at getting in there, cutting his losses and getting out, and he would catch those bounces, and he was a master, and that's all he did. Very good at it, and made a lot of money. Terrible strategy for everybody else to follow. You would never teach anyone to just stop, to stop what they're doing and look to be an expert at fading and not go with the trend, because you're open to some really large losing. But his personality was just lined up with being super frugal, super good at cutting losses, always paranoid, and just had that feel for those bounces, and that was his system. And so, but most people who did well were trend following and doing other things that were more typical of what you'd hear. So on the back to the topic of the book, I think about myself, and it's like, okay, well, do I get impulsive? I do. Am I patient? Sometimes, not always. Oftentimes I'm impatient. As a kid, I was impulsive and impatient. As an adult, with training and a lot of work to not be that way, it's been a lot better. It's been something that I've worked at a long time to not be as impatient. And it pops up sometimes, but I would argue that sometimes one of my best strengths is I'm impatient and I'm impulsive, which means I go hard and I go fast and I shoot first and I shoot early when I see something that I instinctively and intuitively know is good, which is a very right-brained thing, which goes against the idea that right brain is not good for trading. And maybe it's tactical trading in the trenches every day, picking levels, is very left-brained. Maybe it's stupid to even use left brain, right brain terminology. Right brain being like the more creative, open world type thinking, left brain being very tactical and measure things and probabilistic thinking. So ultimately, we use a combination of things at a high level when we're successful. I think everyone does. But going back to the stereotypes, I thought, well, okay, I know my friend who I've traded with for years is really good every day, very much of the mold that he said in the book. He's in there every day, taking money out of the market, very consistent. And then when I was trading next to him, I would be very explosive and very, I'd go on big runs and I would connect things and see them really well when they were happening. And then I would go dry and I would feel confused and lost. And I would get a little bit down on myself and not really know what the hell to do next. And then lo and behold, again, something I understand, hit it hard, do really well, try not to give a lot of it back. A lot of times in the beginning, I was really good at making money and I would give a lot of money back. And then I got better at keeping more of it. I would still give some back always at the end, but I would keep a lot more of it and I would keep my equity curve higher. And here is my friend next to me with all those attributes just grinding away and being very consistent. And at the end of the day, end of the year or the month or the quarter even, not the day necessarily, but the year, the month, or the quarter, we were both consistent. I was really consistent over the over months, always over quarters and years for sure, but not necessarily in the day trading world from day to day. It's like I might have a month where it's half winning days, half losing days, And when I was going really bad, I would have a month where I've had runs as bad as I've lost money 17 out of 20 days in a month. And then the next month I come in and I make 3 or 4x of everything I lost because I see something I like and I kind of hang on to it. And that has always really kind of followed me everywhere I've went. I've been like that. That's just the way I am. I'm not even, the data shows it. So I can look at my data, my trades, and I can see, oh, well, Brad, you have 35% winners. And there's a lot of scratches in futures trading. So I'm speaking of that world now. You broke even on 15, 20% of your trades, and then the rest of them were losers. So, maybe my stock stuff looks more like mid to upper 30s of winning, and the rest is losing. So I'm losing way more than I'm winning, but I'm taking paper cuts and leg punches. And then when I win, I'm taking big scores, and sometimes really big scores that are carrying me for the whole year. Definitely the Pareto principle, almost the 95-5 or the 90-10 rule is going on over here. I'm not trying to be like that. I just noticed that's how it works. And so back to the stereotypes, I started to get down on myself after my drawdown of those profits in crypto and said, well, geez, you're not doing a lot of these things. And I thought, well, if I would have just obeyed some of my rules and been a little more focused on my exits like I was just a few months ago, I was really sharp with it. I just lost grip a little bit. I wouldn't be having this conversation about beating myself up because some book says I don't have a lot of the qualities of what other good traders have. Yet I've been doing this for, 18, 19 years now, and I haven't had a losing year yet. But here I am reading a book, and I find myself at odds with almost all the traits, except for really caring about the risk management part and not blowing out and being very cautious. When I get beat up, I cut my size way back. I get very cautious, and I start to really just kind of go into a hole a little bit mentally and emotionally and financially, all of it. I just kind of pull back, and I think that's what saves me a lot. And then eventually, when it goes well again, I'm able to step it up pretty quickly, and that size comes back and that confidence comes back. So it's like there's a quick down and a quick up with me, and that's kind of how it works. And I try to keep a balanced perspective most of the time, but sometimes on the edges, that's just the way I am. And my wife, for example, will be a lot slower to go down and a lot slower maybe to bounce back up. So it's just a slow fall for her if she goes down, and then she's got to get out of that spot. And for me, it's usually a quicker fall and a quicker bounce. And that's just the way we're all wired differently. So the reason for this whole thing is to not be hard on yourself about comparing or thinking that you do or don't have some system or some method that you're supposed to have, because each one of us has something that we can be really good at in this world. You can be a right brain creative person and be constantly ahead of trends that are early and crush it by being early. And you might suck at exiting or trading, but you get a little better at trading, a little better at exiting, but you're really good about being early. Make a ton of money being early. That's a great strat. That's a great way to be. And not everyone has the ability to be early because they're not wired to be creative. That's one thing I'm pretty good at, being creative and looking at stuff, being curious, and trying a lot of things. So I'm often earlier, not earliest, but early enough where I get that pop for being early. Then it makes my life easy. And then I add in a little bit of trading skills. But just tactically trading all day and being a calculated probabilistic poker player or whatever that type is a great thing too, but it's not really how I am. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, and that's just okay. And you got to really get lined up with how you're going to do it well, and don't cheat yourself, because what ends up happening when you struggle is you start looking around, you join a bunch of groups. Oh, this person's making money. There's all these systems that seem so clean and easy, but I just feel like a panic inside because I don't know if they fit me. And I know a lot of you right now are nodding your head because you feel this. You have to feel this. I felt this so many times. But there's something that does fit you, and there's a calmness to it, and there's a repeatability to it, and you got to find that spot, and you will find that spot. And sometimes it's just a little pocket, but then as that pocket grows, you pick another one, and they all kind of speak to each other, and that can transition on time frames too. It has for me, but I'm still, growing in this journey too, and as you can see from the last podcast I did, I'm still bumping into this stuff. This never ends. I mean, you're always going to bump into something again. And sometimes there's a nasty reminder of something you thought you learned that you never had to learn again. And then you do. I mean, there's enough events conspire in your life, and you do. So I'm hoping I can really sharpen myself up from the lesson that I had. And I'm going to do some more work on, is there anything I want to change, or how can I make sure that this doesn't happen next time. But I'll save that for another podcast when I have those thoughts. But right now, this one was just about not boxing yourself into what everyone else thinks you need to do.